You're watching VinylicPumaGaming. Hey guys, back with another Borderlands 2 countdown video, and today I think we could go over some of what I think are really cool and unique builds and playstyles for Borderlands 2. Now, before we get into this particular video, I want to go ahead and mention that these aren't necessarily going to be the most optimized or min-maxer friendly builds out there. What I'm mostly going for here is unique builds that if you haven't played Borderlands 2 before, or if you've played your first character and you got them to level 72 and you're interested in trying something else, these are some cool builds that you could try on some other characters. And yes, while that min-maxing Salvador build with the grog nozzle and either an interfacer or unkempt herald is definitely awesome and extremely powerful, I want to focus more on something that I think would be more obscure to the general player base. With that said, there will most likely be a couple builds or playstyles here that you will recognize. In fact, you may even use some of these yourself. But without further ado, these will be what I think are some of the coolest and unique builds or playstyles in Borderlands 2, and let's go ahead and get started with number 7, and that is going to be Melee Zero. Now, I'm sure that quite a number of you that are watching this video are already aware of how to play Melee Zero. However, some of you may not be. Now, I could have included either Gun Zero or Sniper Zero here, but I feel that those playstyles in particular tend to be more common among the player base. That's not to say that Melee Zero isn't popular, because it definitely is, but a few members of the community moved on from Melee Zero since melee damage scales with level, and once you hit overpowered 8 difficulty, you can't increase your damage any further unless you have an overpowered level Roid Shield. Regardless, I think Melee Zero overall is a pretty unique take on a melee character in an FPS game. Instead of primarily relying on using some type of gun to deal all of the damage, the player has to use skillful positioning and precise timing in order to maximize their damage output. At higher levels, the best class mod for Melee Zero is definitely the Legendary Ninja. This class mod can boost your melee damage significantly, and it can also boost skills like Backstab and Ambush, which boost damage enemies take from behind or that aren't targeting you. Follow Through increases movement speed, as well as gun and melee damage, and Killing Blow will greatly increase your damage against enemies with very low health. As for weapons, you will ideally want a rapier assault rifle and preferably a grog nozzle with the bladed attachment. The grog will allow you to heal off of melee damage dealt to enemies, and the rapier has the highest melee damage bonus for any gun or weapon in Borderlands 2. And I would say if you haven't tried Zero, I think this is probably one of the more interesting and unconventional builds to try and play for him. Number 6. TEDIORE AXTON. AXTON may be one of the best characters to play if you plan on using a lot of TEDIORE weapons. The big reason for that is because AXTON has a lot of skills that optimize reload speed, and he also has a lot of skills that boost grenade damage, which can in turn increase the thrown reload damage of TEDIORE weapons. You'll find that when both of these attributes are combined together, that you're going to be getting really impressive DPS, and you should be able to steamroll most enemies. As long as you have TEDIORE weapons that you want to use, all you should really need at that point is a Bone of the Ancients class mod that matches the element of the weapons that you're using, and you will need an Expert Veteran class mod which will boost your reload speed and magazine size. As far as skill boosts are concerned, I would go ahead and say that you're going to want boosts to Steady and Pressure. The Veteran class mod can also boost Last Ditch Effort, but I would avoid that version if possible. As for recommended weapons, I highly recommend the Avenger, which will allow you to regenerate SMG ammo slowly over time, and it's also capable of some crazy reload damage if you know how to use it. The Babymaker SMG is really easy to use and deals a lot of reload damage. The Omen shotgun is both a good conventional shotgun, and it also has really good reload damage, and the Gunnerang can be quite powerful, even though it's a little bit more difficult to use. If you check around YouTube, there are some really sick kills with TEDIORE AXTON on raid bosses, and you can use that to kind of gauge whether you want to go for this particular build or not. But if you are looking for something that plays different from what you're used to, I would say that TEDIORE AXTON is definitely different. Number 5. HOARDER Salvador. In Borderlands 2, Salvador is really the only character that can regenerate ammo, both while he is gunzerking as well as while he has a Hoarder class mod equipped. Now, it's important to mention that there is both a regular as well as a legendary version of the Hoarder class mod. In terms of stat boosts, both will replenish the player's ammo count. However, the legendary version boosts 5 skills, while the regular version can boost up to 3. The regular Hoarder provides skill point boosts to lay waste, 5 shots or 6, and fill to the brim, while the legendary Hoarder version provides boosts to those skills in addition to locked and loaded and insight. All of these skills are pretty good and boost things like critical hit damage, fire rate, and magazine size. And 5 shots or 6 in particular will randomly add bullets to the magazine, which will also improve DPS as well. The Hoarder class mod can make a lot of weapons that were once fairly impractical at least a little bit more practical. In fact, you can actually somewhat use the chopper with a Hoarder class mod equipped. But for the most part, I've found a Hoarder class mod tends to work wonders with weapons with both high fire rates or weapons that consume multiple ammo per shot. And you may also like using a Hoarder class mod with Jacob's weapons, as you may never end up running out of ammo. I would say that the Hoarder class mod for Salvador is really his definitive mobbing class mod, since you are the least likely to run out of ammo for your weapons, and thanks to some of Salvador's inherent skills, you're probably going to steamroll everything anyway. Number 4. HELLBORN KRIEG. Like we've discussed with Zero, there's a pretty good chance that you probably already know about this particular build or playstyle already. However, the HELLBORN tree is personally what I think really makes KRIEG unique, and while you're going to need fairly decent gear, some of that gear is relatively easy for the player to acquire. Case in point, the 2 essential components for this particular build are the Flame of the Firehawk shield, which is a quest reward, and the Grog nozzle, which is a quest or mission weapon. Additionally, it might be a pretty good idea to equip a Bone of the Ancients as well as a legendary Torch class mod. That way you can increase your fire damage as well as some other useful stat and skill boosts that are provided by that legendary Torch class mod. In particular, the legendary Torch boosts Burn Baby Burn and Fuel the Fire, which make self-ignition easier, Flame Flare, which increases self-ignition duration, Elemental Elation, which boosts fire rate and magazine size, and Embrace the Pain, which boosts the fire rate of your guns while your shields are depleted, and also increases the length of your shield recharge delay by up to 10 seconds, provided you have 10 out of 5 points in the skill. The first time you experience HELLBORN KRIEG with a Flame of the Firehawk, in my opinion, is pretty glorious. The effects from the shield almost seem to last forever, and you're basically going to be steamrolling enemies. In terms of a low amount of effort, I would say that HELLBORN KRIEG requires the least amount of effort among any other build on this particular list. In my opinion, this is a pretty fun build to try, and at higher levels, HELLBORN skills tend to mix really well with some of the skills from the Bloodlust tree. But overall, if you haven't played KRIEG and you want somewhere to start, I recommend the HELLBORN tree. Number 3. Fastball/Grenade AXTON. While the fastball is also pretty effective on KRIEG, the fastball is also really great on AXTON, provided that you have the proper gear. Ideally, you're going to want a Grenadier class mod that boosts the Grenadier skill by +5 or +6, and you will also want to make sure that you've acquired all of the grenade SDUs from Crazy Earl in Sanctuary. For quick reference, the Master Grenadier provides +6 to Grenadier, and the Expert version provides +6 to Steady, which increases grenade damage, among other things. If you can manage to find one, you can also acquire a Stockpile Relic that boosts grenade count by +5. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear that this scales beyond level 50, where something like a Bone of the Ancients relic does, and can boost the damage of the elemental versions of your fastball. To keep things simple, if you want better damage, go with the Bone of the Ancients, and if you want more grenades, go with the Grenade Stockpile Relic. After that, a Big Boom Blaster shield will allow you to regenerate grenades as you pick up the corresponding boosters to recharge the shield, and to top it all off, if you've got a Slagga, you can use it to quickly slag enemies to make most fastball throws a one-hit KO. I suppose it's important to mention that you can use other grenade mods in addition to the fastball as well. I tend to really like either the Meteor Shower, Bonus Package, Magic Missile, Stormfront, or generic Tesla grenade mods with this particular setup. As long as you aren't too careless with your grenade throws, I think you'll have a really hard time actually running out of grenades. AXTON is quite effective using just grenades, and this is definitely a setup that you can have a lot of fun with. Number 2. DEATHTRAP GAIGE. So at higher levels, GAIGE tends to be played with mostly a pure Anarchy style build, along with either a Norfleet, Twister, Fib or Pistol, and other high quality weapons. The main reason for this is because you can kill quickly and you don't have to wait on DEATHTRAP in order to kill everything for you. However, under ideal circumstances, a DEATHTRAP GAIGE build is actually fairly decent for mobbing. With that said, you're going to want to avoid a lot of DEATHTRAP's vomit-inducing skills like 1-2 boom, the stare, and explosive clap, just to name a few. But you will definitely want to pick up Upshot Robot, which will increase DEATHTRAP's uptime, and you will also definitely want Sharing is Caring, which is going to allow you to share your shield with DEATHTRAP, and Make It Sparkle, which will allow you to tack an element to your DEATHTRAP's melee to allow it to deal additional elemental damage of the corresponding element. Gear-wise, you're definitely going to want a Hide of Terramorphous shield, as this is probably the best shield for DEATHTRAP to use. Not only will DEATHTRAP deal additional roid damage when the shield is depleted, but your DEATHTRAP will also benefit from the Nova damage and the Spike type damage that the Hide of Terramorphous can deal to enemies that get close. Otherwise, I would say that you could pretty much use whatever else you're comfortable with as far as weapons go. I think you'll find that DEATHTRAP GAIGE can be actually pretty fun to mess around with if you're used to playing only Anarchy GAIGE with a Norfleet. Number 1. BACKDRAFT Maya. So as the name implies, BACKDRAFT Maya is a playstyle that makes use of Maya's backdraft skill from the Cataclysm tree. Now, backdraft is a skill that allows your melee attacks to deal additional fire damage, and when your shields get depleted, it causes a fire nova, much like you would see on either the Flame of the Firehawk shield or on your own standard fire nova shield. Now, a backdraft Maya build uses 3 pieces of gear. You will need a shock element slow hand from the Torg DLC, a transformer shield from the vanilla game with a relatively low absorb chance if possible, preferably actually, and a blue rarity Scorched Banshee class mod, which will allow you to get your backdraft skill to 11 out of 5, which should allow backdraft to achieve its maximum damage potential. As I understand it, the way this particular build works is based around the fact that the transformer absorbs a combination of both projectile and shock damage. As you fire the slow hand at the ground, the shock damage will cause the shield to deplete, triggering backdraft. Then, since the Transformer shield recharges from shock damage, you get a portion of the damage the slow hand deals recharging your shield. Ultimately, what this all allows you to do is continuously trigger backdraft at will, while you otherwise would have needed to deplete the shield naturally for that effect to work. This is actually a surprisingly viable way to play Maya at higher level difficulties, and the Backdraft Nova is actually pretty powerful. The only real downside to this build is that it's fairly gear dependent and you need a specific version of the Transformer, but otherwise, I really quite like this build, and if you can find the gear, I suggest that you give this particular build a whirl. Alright guys, that's going to wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, and as always, like this video if you liked it, click the bell to join the notification squad, and as always, take care and I'll see you all next time.